Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our webinar today. Our topic today is Using Profit Analytics to Set Price and Correct Margin Errors. Our presenter today is Randy McLean, President and Founder of Waypoint Analytics.
Good morning. Thank you, Jean. Thank you all for coming to attend this morning. Our purpose today is to take a look at one of the critical issues, and in my view, one of the critical errors that we've all been taught in terms of how we manage our businesses. And frankly, as I think about this topic each time after coming up through the ranks, having been a nationally awarded sales rep and later on a branch manager, sales VP, company president, CEO. All through those years, I was taught to manage my business on gross margins, and was also later on taught how to I taught my people how to manage their business on gross margins, and I've got to admit, across the years, I've had mixed results. Fortunately, more bad than good, but never stellar or rarely stellar. And for the longest time, I didn't really understand why that was. Now that I spend my life in advanced analytics for wholesale distribution and manufacturing companies, I have a lot more insight into the kinds of things that actually are the profit drivers in the business, and I have come to the realization that gross profit margin management is only a very, very loose tool, or very loosely coupled tool for managing the actual profitability of the business. And I have learned from people that do it much better to be able to go beyond that, or that you need to go beyond that in order to be able to do a better job. And so today what I'm going to do is spend some time showing you the advanced analytics that companies are using to be able to do a better job of managing profitability rather than managing gross margin, and where we can still use gross margin as a tool to help us get better results from our territories or from our branches or from our whole companies. There's some great techniques to be able to do that, and I'd like to be able to demonstrate some of those things for you today. So the first thing I wanted to do is just talk generally about what goes on in the profitability of a business. And remember that managing profit is the holy grail of what we need to be doing. If we manage profit, we manage cash flow, we manage our return on investment, we manage everything that matters in terms of making the company safe, stable, helping it grow, making sure that we are safe from our financing sources and from the vagaries of the market. And companies that do this effectively get huge results in terms of their safety, security, stability, and their ability to become dominant players in their marketplace. So the first thing I wanted to point out is I wanted to just take a baseline. We're looking at a small company here. It's about a $20 million business, and some companies, many companies vary from this size, but the principles are the same. Whether you're doing $5 million a year or $5 billion a year, the principles are the same. And in our customer base, the people that use Waypoint Analytics to operate using advanced managing things as on top of the gross margin, or get away from the gross margin management as the key tool, but start using some more sophisticated methods. These companies, regardless of their size, have turned in some stellar performances even through the bad economy the last few years. So looking at this company, we had a $20 million business that generates $370,000 on the bottom line. And that's a snapshot of the business. What's really happening is this company is bringing in a tiny fraction of the amount of profits or the amount of revenues they have. They're getting a very tiny fraction of the bottom line. And this is absolutely typical. We have never seen a company ever that was using the old style techniques with gross margin management and the other things that we've all been taught that got more than 20 to 25% of its peak profits to the bottom line. Normally they only get this level, and in nominal years, in good years, they deliver about 3 to 4% of the bottom line. Now, this business is made up of individual sales to individual products to individual customers. And if we take a quick look, or we have the ability to take a look at what our profitability is on each item that we have sold to the customers across the course of the year, this is what we find. And what we've done is we've made a whale curve out of the transaction lines that have been sold on all of the invoices. So we've taken all the profitable lines. We've worked out the absolute cost of selling each item that we've sold to the customers, and this is something that Waypoint does, and we've put all of the ones that we make a lot of money on the left side of the chart, and all the ones we lose money on the right side of the chart. And so what we see is we take the most profitable line, stack the second most profitable line, third most, and count up how much money we've made so far through all of the profitable lines. We find that about 40% of the business was profitable to some degree. Even if it was only a tiny fraction of a dollar that we made on the line, it was profitable. And a moment ago, we were looking at a company with a $270,000 net profit at the end of the year. But internally, they made over $2.2 million in sold, delivered, collected bottom line profit on all the lines that they sold on a profitable basis. That's about 40% of the business, just looking at the width of the chart. On the other 60% of the business, they lost money on what they sold. That means the gross margin on the line was insufficient to cover the expense of procuring the product and delivering it to the customer's hands, and they lost money on that line on that invoice line. And so on 60% of all the invoice lines that they wrote in the year, they lost money. And so what happened is they wound up with a $270,000 bottom line, but that's all they had left out of the $2.2 million of profits that they had made on the business. And so what we'd like to be able to do is in any company, every company has a curve like this, every company does this, and the companies that are absolutely showing massive profit and growth gains, even in a slow economy right now, are the companies that have gone on and done something new to be able to do something about this fact of life that exists in every business, and it exists in your business in every one of your territories. Now, what I'd like to do is show you how it is that we get in control of this and what we do about it and how this relates back to margins. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a particular rep, James Coggins, and I'm going to look at his business for the year. I'm going to look at his customers. And so I'm going to take a look at a profit report on a customer-by-customer basis for James' territory for the entire year and see what it is that his business is doing, what his customers are doing. And we have some interesting metrics here. For every customer, we know some of the mundane things, the statistical things that are fairly common. We know what the invoice count is, how much revenue was, even how much gross profit, and what the gross margin on the account was. But we can also discover some other things that are very, very important that we don't normally get to see, and that is how much we spent servicing the account, how much of our warehouse was consumed, how much of our sales force was consumed, how much of our customer service and other resources, management attention, how many of the dollars that we spent in operating the business can be attributed to servicing this particular customer account. And so we get some very interesting numbers. And just for example, the very best customer in James' whole territory is medical life insurance. And so we have $160,000 of business in the year, generating $58,000 of gross profit at a 36.2 margin. And that's a very nice piece of business. And we spent, all in all, $33,000 servicing the account, or about 20% of the revenue amount was spent in servicing the account. That paid for all of our operations, the warehousing, the deliveries, overhead, management, sales management, everything with the exception of the sales force. We don't calculate the sales force. We leave that till later, and there's an important reason for that I'll get to later on. So we got $58,000 on the account, and we spent $33,000 servicing it, leaving us $24,000 to divvy up with the sales rep that was on the account. So we pay his commissions out of that, and the company gets to keep the rest. And translating that back into margins, we can find that the break-even point for this particular account was 24.7%. That's what margin we would need if we did this exact business, selling this exact product to this exact customer in this time frame. We would need to have a 24.7% margin to break even on the account. What we actually achieved was a 36.2 margin, which is much better. And the system here sets a target margin, and I'll get into that a little later on. It's a guide for salespeople to use in bids and quotes and to help them improve their territories. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But the thing that I wanted to that I want to help everybody understand is that the cost structure varies for each customer. And if you think about it, just sitting back for a moment, if you have a $100,000 account, you have two $100,000 accounts, and they both have, say, a 25 margin. Those accounts, to most people, to most management systems, and certainly to me as I was coming up through the ranks, those customers are the same. However, the fact is they're not the same if their cost structures are different. So if the one guy is ordering, putting in a couple of big orders a year, it's all coming straight from China, and pardon me, and the there's 2 containers a year that come in from China, or from the manufacturer, from the vendor someplace. It's never hitting our warehouse, but going straight to the customer. That's a lot different than a guy that's buying 100,000 and 25 margin by coming to the counter every day, buying a couple of things, maybe sometimes coming 2 or 3 times if you forget something, and he buys a lot of stuff across the course of the year. But instead of, nothing going through the warehouse at all, we're paying people in the warehouse to pick a little bit of stuff and give it to them and send them an invoice, and then a little bit more and send them another invoice, sometimes on the same day. And that consumes our resources, our personnel, and our time, our bandwidth. And so the profitability on those 2 customers is just simply not the same. Nobody has the information to be able to recognize that until now. And so what we can see as we start to look into this gray column in the middle is that the best customer we have, we spend 20.9% of all of the sales revenue we get for him on servicing the account. Next one is 20.8, 20.9, and then we have a customer number 4. We spend 44% of all the revenue that comes in to service the account. So where we're spending $22,000 on the account above, which is a $100,000 account to service them, we're spending $11,000 or half as much on an account that only gives us 1/4 of the revenue. And in fact, only about 1/2 of the gross profit. And so what we can recognize from this is that every customer has a different cost ratio that he enforces on us in terms of the way that we've agreed to do business with him. And that greatly affects the amount of margin that we need in order for the account to be profitable. And we can see that by going back to the break-even account, break-even column here, where if we just scan through the first few customers, these are the break-even numbers that we need for each account in order for them to be profitable. 24/7, 21/7, 22.4, 55.5, 15.4, 25.7, 10.5. In the first 7 customers alone in this guy's territory, we have a variation of between 10.5 and 55.5 in terms of the margin that we need in order to be profitable. Now this strikes a lot of fear into my heart after spending so many years saying, hey guys, go get me a 22 margin and we'll be fine. Because the fact of the matter is, this company's average margin across the whole board is around 22.5, 22.8% margin. And if I just said, okay, get me 23, if I price this customer at 23, I am going to go into a straight loss on one of my best, most profitable customers right now. We already have a pricing structure that does a good job of recognizing the high cost of servicing this account and make sure that we're being properly paid for it. If I say get me 23 on this guy, it's possible, well right now we're getting 26 so it's okay, but we're going to run into accounts right here where they're profitable. George Campbell down here, or we're getting 12.1. We only need 6.5 to be profitable. If I say get me 23 and we start pricing it there, what's going to happen is we may lose the account. Other people may recognize that this guy's a low-cost account and is willing to give a lower price in order to be able to get his business and make money on it, and we'll be giving that up by just using that one-size-fits-all margin target. So it's very, very important for us to start to be more sophisticated in our management and to start recognizing that different accounts have different cost structures and to be able to set the margins accordingly. Now, I promised I'd come back to this target account, this target column, and what this is all about in combination with a little color map here down the middle column is the system goes through all of the profitable accounts in this guy's territory. So it takes all of the accounts that he already sells to and it takes into account the product that he sells to them. So and it comes up with it knows which accounts are profitable and which ones are not. And of all the profitable accounts, it goes through and says, what is the average profit rate on the profitable accounts in this guy's territory buying the stuff that they buy? And then it takes that metric and says, okay, working back, what margin will we need on each one of these accounts to put it in the middle of the profitable range? Now, and that's the target margin that we show on the far side here. So once again, it says, if we want to make this account at least as good as the average profitable account in this guy's territory, what should it be? And in this case, our target is 13.3 for George Campbell. We're getting 12.1. And so the little color map thing here is that where we're underachieving the target, it lets us know by tinting it yellow. And James Coggins here could easily say, well, I'm bidding this stuff at 12.1, we're making money on them, but he's not as profitable as my other profitable accounts, and it's likely that I could get this up to 13.3. I could probably get another point of margin on this account and make an already profitable account a little bit more profitable, and that would improve my territory. In cases where we're already overachieving the target, we just leave this green and say, hey, it's fine, just leave it the way it is, and let's go with it. Now, scanning down to the bottom, we can take a look. There's one big account down here. It's a $250,000 account, Stokes Merrill, and we do $272,000 a year. We make $58,000 in gross profit at a 21 margin, which seems respectable, but we wind up losing $8,900 on this account, and then we pay James a commission on the account because nobody in our system and in this company system recognizes that this is actually a loss, and they compound it by adding commissions on top of the deal. So the thing that we'd like to be able to do is say, what will we need to do with Stokes Merrill to get it into the range? The first thing we need to know is we need a 24 margin in this account to break even because of their cost structure. We have a 24.8% cost structure on here, and we're only getting a 21.5 margin, so obviously we're upside down. The second thing is if we don't want to just stop the losses, although that would be a good start. What we would like to be able to do is make this a profitable account. It's a high volume account. We should be able to sell to them on a profitable basis. And there's two things that we can do to do that. The first thing is, if we're going to continue doing business with them with as many invoices and as many trucks and as many orders being entered and as many of our resources being consumed and selling the product mix that we're selling, we're going to leave all of that the same. Then what we should do is we should raise the price so that we have enough margin to cover our basis. And what we really need is we need a 30.1 margin to get them up to the midpoint of our profitable customers. And maybe getting them from 21.5 to 30.1 is a bridge too far. So the other thing we can do is we could work with the customer to reduce the expense rate that we have here. If we get the expenses down to below 24%, then we could do something with that. So that's kind of good in the abstraction, but how do we find out what exactly we would do? How would we talk to the customer in order to be able to make that change? And so what we can do is we can pull up a profit breakdown for Stokes Merrill and get a sense of where all this money is going and what it is that they're doing that makes the expenses so high. So what we can take a look at is the $58,000 gross profit we have here. We got $5,500 wrapped up in selling expenses, and that's where we have our marketing and advertising. This is their share of it, and I'm not sure we can change that very much. But we are processing 228 orders from these guys per year. And that means we're processing an order every day. And this is not only bad for us because we have to pay people to take the orders in, put them in the system, have somebody pick whatever's on that order, send it out on a truck, and then we have to send them an invoice, and then somebody has to put the payment for the invoice in the system and then put the money from the payment in the bank. And we're paying people to do all these things 228 times a year. And our people can only do so many of these at times, so we have to hire more people when we get more customers to do this a lot. But it's also bad for the customer because it turns out that he has to pay somebody to make 228 orders a year, or he has to pay somebody to be standing at our counter for 15 minutes 228 times a year. And all the downtime he has when people are not out doing their work, when they're in standing at our counter getting something, is not good for him either. And he has to pay people in his warehouse to take 228 things times a year, take stuff off our truck and put it wherever, do whatever they do with it, and 228 times a year they have to put our invoices in and so on and so forth. So it's better for both companies if we reduce that friction, that channel overhead, in order to make the businesses better. So if we make ourselves more profitable in the account by reducing these expenses, we're making the customer more profitable at the same time. And so we look at the warehouse. We've got 762 picks. It costs us $50 to have the warehouse, have the inventory there to pick, have the person go pick it, have them pack it up, get it in a box, and send it out the door. And if we can get the customer to, for instance, buy the same amount of product, but only buy 3 times a week instead of 4 or 5, then we both are better off, and the customer can be put in the win column, and we can have more resources available to handle more customers in the future. And this is what companies do to make themselves more profitable, is dig into these kinds of things. The other thing that we can do is we can take a look at what they're buying, and we can get a history of the SKUs that we have, we've sold them. And as it turns out, when we sold them 83,000 feet of rolled news at a 17.7 margin, we made more money on that than anything else we sold them. And the price that we've set on this at 17.7 is quite acceptable, or at least it's in the good column for what we're doing. But down at the bottom of the list, we have the things that we've sold them and lost the most money. And what I can see is when we're selling the non-woven warehouse pads, we sold them 41 of them at a 13.4 margin. I don't know why we're selling a 13.4 when this guy's average is 21.6. But we're losing money when we do it. We lost $3,800, and we lost every dollar we made on our best item and more while selling this one item at such a low margin. And so when we start taking a look at what we're doing here, why are we doing this? And how can it possibly make sense to be able to sell these kinds of things at these levels? And we can look at every single item here, look at the margins on it. We can start cherry picking this account saying, well, first of all, let's look at everything that we're selling at low margins and see if we need to be doing this and why. And we have something here that we absolutely gave away. You know, we sold them these things at 0, and it cost us $206 for them. Why are we giving them these things here on a money-losing account? So we can start breaking down the account and taking a look at how we're setting our pricing and why, how we're pricing various items and why. When they come back, if they want us to bid on something in the future, we can go back and take a look at what we sold them in the past and how they bought it and how they tend to buy it. And we can start saying, well, we're never going to bid this at such a low price again, because these guys tend to buy these things in small quantities, and the costs are eating us alive, and we have all the numbers to back that up. Now, one other thing that we can do is we can use a pairing method to take a look at this. So we got a customer here that's $272,000 providing us $51,000 of gross margin, and they're losing money. Let's see what a similar account might look like up at the top end. And there's 2 of them we can look at. We have David Penske Chevrolet. They're $244,000, so it's around the same revenue. And when we look at them, we're making good money on them. We got a 24 margin, so it's not that much higher, but we can see that there's fewer orders, only 213 orders here, only 500 items picked instead of 760 items picked. So they're buying a smaller selection of product, and because of that, we're getting a ability to have more on each pick that we're going out, and there's more gross profit to carry the overhead that's related to this. So we have a very good opportunity to put to make more money on the account when we're doing this, and that makes a lot of sense for how we run the business. The other thing is, on this account, that we have a slightly higher margin, and that may be part of the thing. So maybe if the margin was a little bit higher on a customer this size, or the other customer that's this size, we'd have a win, and I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. The other account that we can look at, here's one with about $60,000 in gross margin. It's a bigger account, but it's $60,000 in gross margin, which is around the $58,000 that we're looking at before. And so again, we can take a look at these accounts and pair them off and say, what's different? How is it that we're doing business with a similar account and we're doing it profitably, but we have an account down here that is not such a winner? And we can start looking at the pricing that we put into things and so on. Now, the last thing I wanted to look at is advanced management, and this is one of the most important things that a company can do. Frankly, at the top end of the business, your job is not to make sure the trains run on time. You pay people to do that. Your real job is to make the business better this year than it was last, and better next year than it was this one. and the only metric that matters is profitability. So it's very, very important to be able to be managing change in the business. In most companies, they don't have any ability to do it because they don't even have a starting point. And if you're going to have anything at all, you need a profit delta report so that you can see how things are changing so that you can start managing the change. And so the profit delta report for James Coggin's territory here lets us look at the profitability and how that's changing across time. And this is the thing that gives us sort of our big scale indicators of where we need to focus our energy if we're going to go and take a look at managing on profitability rather than margin, and we're going to start using margin at least as a tool to start raising and lowering margins where it's important to do so. Then the first thing that we need is we need to know where and who. And so this delta report is very, very important. And what we have here, just at the last couple of columns where we have, we can see where everything's changing, where margin has changed, where gross profit has changed, but most importantly, where profitability has changed. And at the very top, the best thing that happened is we had a large account that we're doing less business with, a large money-losing account that we're doing less money-losing business on. And our territory had a $19,000 loss because of this account last year. This year only has a $4,000 loss, and that's actually going to make the territory better. It basically makes the territory $15,000 better. And that's a real $15,000 because it's $15,000 that doesn't have to be subsidized out of our financing sources, never to be recovered from a money-losing customer. And so the fact that we're doing less business with a customer that's losing us money is a good thing for the territory. And we have a few of these things up here. We also have an example where we have a money-losing customer that has become a money-making customer. And of course, that's the kind of thing that we would like to be doing. And then we have an example here on the fifth line of a customer that's brand new that's making us money. These are all things that are good for the territory, good for the company, and where we're using things to make things, using our ability to make things better. And you'll notice that where we had a company that went from a money-losing status to a money-making status, what happened was the margin went from 37.5 to 55.8. And so we started doing more business with them at a higher margin. And so we changed the pricing on the account, and that has changed the profit picture of the account. So we're doing things that are moving things in the right direction. Now, but that down at the bottom report, we have things that are going in the wrong direction. And here we have a money-losing account that is actually increasing its volume, and we reduce the margin, increase the losses on the account. And so we got a $19,000 increased detriment to the territory going on with this one account that is a large volume account that's getting larger, or a medium volume account that's getting larger, but we're doing business in a very dysfunctional manner. And not only has that happened, we've reduced the pricing along the way. And this has wiped out all the good that we did on the first couple of accounts at the top of the list. So this territory is worse off by nearly $20,000 this year than it was last year because of what's going on with this account. We have another account where their volume has gone down and the amount of profits they're generating has gone down. And this has happened even though we've decreased the margins. Stokes Merrill has gone from actually being a $7,500 winner to an $8,900 loser because we've had some margin erosion and because the expense ratio has gone, the expenses have gone up significantly on this account. And so it's very important to be able to recognize these things and to be able to act on the changes. If you can act on the changes, you can manage them. And this is the way that you make a territory better, and by making sure that you're managing prices from a profit standpoint, managing them granularly, not using the one-size-fits-all management, and managing the change in the territory so that you can get better results out of each and every sales territory, out of each and every customer by managing them from a profitability basis. Now, if you want to know more about this, we are hosting or sponsoring the Advanced Profit Improvement Conference in Scottsdale, March 19th and 20th. It's a private, invitation-only event, but we will make an invitation to everybody that's at this webinar to come out to the conference. I highly recommend that you come to the conference. We have 10 or 11 of the top brains on best practices in distribution management speaking at this conference. You'd have to go to 5 or 6 conferences over the next 3 years to see all of these people. And unlike other conferences, there's only about 100 CEOs and CFOs that will be at this event. And the speakers will be there for the full 2 days of the event. It's a 2-day, 2-track conference. And you get a chance to schmooze with other people like yourselves that are sometimes struggling with and sometimes have solved the same problems that you have. The speakers are there for the full 2 days, and you get a chance to talk with them in the breaks and in between. They'll be sitting at your tables when you're there, and you get a chance to see what they think about your business instead of just hoping to get a question in one of the sessions. And it is the people that come out say that it's the best conference they go to, period, and we'd like very much for you to be able to attend. We will send you some information on a link to the conference registration. We do recommend you register right away. Major League Ball spring training is on here in Scottsdale at the same time. You can take in a game, but hotel rooms will be scarce. So book your hotel right now to make sure they're not schlepping in from someplace far away in order to be able to get to the conference. At any rate, thank you all for coming. I appreciate this. I'd be delighted to talk to you more about this at your leisure. My direct number is 623-434-8933. That's 623-434-8933. I'd be delighted to talk to you directly about this, or to let you know more about what we do and how you get the system we've been looking at, Waypoint Analytics, that gives you all the detail to be able to manage your margins in a very granular way, and to be able to get the kinds of profit gains that companies can get. So at any rate, I'm looking forward to talking to you in the future. You have a great day, good selling, and give a real long, hard thought to gross margin management. It's not particularly healthy.
All right. Thank you very much, Randy. And everyone have a great day.